how many times do you think you sign stuff and your small businesses never ask these 3 questions?
Frequently. Usually I'm the one saying, these are questions you should be asking me.
You're listening to the Help Me with Hipaa podcast, where Hipaa and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. Hipaa help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with Hipaa podcast. My name is David Sims of Hipaa for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin.
Da-da-da.
On location.
Yes. Partially to Sanibel Island. Yay.
Yeah. You're down there working, right?
I am. It's work for me to sit on the beach. That's my plan.
Yeah. Well, temperature's dropping now, though, so.
Only up there.
Only where I am.
Yeah, even in Atlanta, it's chilly. It's like fall, and everybody's all excited. It's fall. I'm like, I'm not that. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it the way you are.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I'm like, fall's kind of like, oh, man, winter's coming.
Is exactly it. And so to me, I would prefer to have fall. I'm good with, except for the fact that it brings on winter.
Yep, that is true. So today we're going to be talking to the customers of MSPs,
which means we also are talking to MSPs.
Right, exactly. So there's some guidance that's come out, which is quite interesting, that says these are the considerations you should have if you've got MSPs all up in your business.
All up in your business.
Yeah. And of course, I run an MSP, so it's something I'm interested in. But you do need to know that hiring an MSP is not just a breath of fresh air.
No.
You can say, finally, somebody can take this off of my plate and do this IT stuff. Hiring an MSP is a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be aware what those risks are and how you're going to mitigate those.
And everybody on the, let's say all of the peoples in the transaction need to understand that as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that MSPs understand what their clients are going to be told they should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly. If you're an MSP and you're listening, this is the information that's going to be going out by us and many other.
Well, it's already out there. That's why we're covering
it. Exactly. Just because it's out there doesn't mean it's out there. So now we're putting it out there.
Oh, okay. I got it. I hear you.
But when people start asking for this, MSP's going to be like, what's going on? Why are people asking for this?
Yeah,
this is proprietary information.
Oh, yeah, I can hear that. I hear that one right now already.
Yeah, but, as I'm reading through the document, I'm like, wow, this is like really vetting your vendor on steroids, but necessary.
Yeah. I mean, it's necessary. In a lot of ways, it's far beyond what we've ever thought of vetting. At least, and that says a lot, because normally when we're vetting people, people are all mad at us for the things we're asking, know, and I'm like, we're not asking that much compared to what we, other people do. So get on board or get out.
But, this comes about because of recent, being within the last year or so, attacks on MSPs.
Almost exactly a year from the solar wind stuff starting.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least us knowing about it.
Yeah, exactly. So MSPs are a target. And the bad thing about it is when MSPs get hit, it typically trickles down to all their clients.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's terrible. We've talked about this in past episodes, and it is one of those things that keeps me up at night thinking about how can I limit this. I mean, we've even discussed in our own organization some things that are even beyond reasonable and appropriate, I think. Like it would segment our customers off, but it would be almost impossible for us to give them good quality service because of how you get to a point where you're like, okay, we can't do that.
Right.
It would protect the clients, but it would also introduce a massive amount of additional work and resources that we can't keep our prices down if we're doing all this stuff.
Yeah, then it's like anything else. There's a return on your investment, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't go to a client and say, we're going to double your invoice because it protects you.
I know. They'd be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But if they learn this stuff, they might start to care. I just don't think they'll care that much. We've got to find the balance.
No, and that's where the balance always has to be. Is you can ask for a lot of stuff, and it's not that you can't get it; it's that it's probably outside of your budget to get it. If you even have a budget, because I still talk with prospects all the time, and I was like, "What's your budget for IT?" And they're like, "We don't have one." You don't have one?
We're not going to talk about that then.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, how do you handle purchasing IT stuff? Well, when it breaks, we freak out. We go buy something. What about when you need something fixed? We call IT, and then we get a bill and we fuss about it and try to figure out how we're going to pay it.
Yeah. I can't afford this. Can't you put something else? Patch that. Get some duct tape. That duct tape will fix it, David.
Yeah. I always love the ones. It kind of reminds me of the old car. It's like, I can't afford to buy a new car, so I'm just going to keep paying to fix this one over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm, and then it's like, okay, well, have you considered the downtime also? How much is it affecting your other business? What is the soft costs involved in this, constant throwing money at the problem instead of just, replacing it?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that is not the topic of our discussion for today.
No, it's not. We digress, and I know everyone's shocked.
Yeah, we do that often. So, all right, let's dive in. You ready?
I am.
Okay.
I'm ready. Because
this is going to get deep. All right. So if you have an MSP or have ever considered an MSP, or if you are an MSP, you should listen from top to bottom, beginning to end. Because this is going to be some stuff.
We're finna get down.
But before we do that, we're going to say a little bit about the Hipaa Say What segment, because it is definitely say what.
We're like, what?
But anyway, you want to tell us what had happened was?
What had happened was that, so we got this from, picked it up on databreaches.net. They do a great job of keeping us in the loop, so to speak. And this one is all right, in a minute we'll tell them what you thought it said. But it's a story of a nurse that worked for an organization at all these different locations in Tempe, Arizona, and was stealing identities of patients and bought a $19,000 car for using one patient's name, $2,600 worth of wigs, which David and I are going to start, getting our own wigs. We had a whole wig conversation.
I'm going to start a wig company if people are buying $2,600 worth of wigs.
I know, right?
Business.
Well, it is, and the ones for cancer patients, they are pretty elaborate stuff. So
yeah, I've already got the name of it. Like the name of the company is going to be Wig Out.
I'm pretty sure somebody already has that, Dave. But you can name an IT company that.
I can call it Wig Out of South Carolina.
There you go. They probably have that too. Anyway,
we do have that program though in our IT company, the Wig Out program. That's typically what people do when they don't have an incident response plan.
Yeah, there you go. Which is a whole nother conversation we've had today. But there's leases on rental property. I mean, just tons of stuff that this nurse had been doing, And to get as many things, it took a while to figure out. And I think one of the victims went to a retailer and asked for a photo of who was purchasing it. So that's how she finally got caught. She didn't get caught by anything happening at the organization. So their insider program needs some work. And it is not the way, and it wouldn't be the first time we have organizations, practices that the FBI notifies them, law enforcement notifies them that they have an insider problem. It is not the way to learn, because it goes right. You have nothing. You don't want to learn that way. So in this particular case, I can't recall right off the top of my head how many, but let's just say they in the news in a way they don't need to be in the news and would never want to be in the news. And that is the second biggest impact. First, you've got the trust of your patients, but your overall reputation is just whacked at that point. You don't even know what your own people are doing, and they're abusing your patients. So, and it was a rehab type facility. So, yeah, I mean, it was, you have to remember that criminals are often creative, but they make mistakes. So,
yeah, especially if they've not been caught for a while, they get more and more sloppy.
Yeah. So anyway, you can get the link to the whole story, read about it, but it is your reminder that your privacy and security program should consider insiders, because not only do you have malicious, but you have negligence, and then you have just, I was trying to be nice. They intentionally did it because they thought it was the right thing to do, to be nice, even though it violated policy. So we've got a lot of areas to go with there. Let's don't do that no more.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember is that, back to the MSP conversation, just because you have an MSP and technology in place and they're like, this is going to protect you from blah, blah, blah. Taking you from insider threats, not usually a thing.
No, it's called access abuse. And abuse of access privileges is a major problem. And those are the ones that get you down the biggest rabbit holes, I can assure you.
And there's very few smaller practices that really do a good job of spot checking even. What are people doing? What are they looking at? Why are they looking at it? And, I mean, we still see people all the time that's like, well, we just give everybody the same username and password, right? Or everybody has access to everything.
Yeah.
Well,
So
there you go.
There's our HIPAA.
Hold on, I wasn't ready.
Oh, you wasn't
ready. See, I told you I wasn't ready.
There's our HIPAA.
Say what?
There you go.
Okay, see, look at, we're clearly out of whack with the two of us today.
Well, I had to keep the volume on this thing turned down because earlier today it just started playing on its own. So.
Just randomly did something.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I say we just go with that. So, but then before we get into the details, we got two things before we get into the details on this MSP thing. That one is, it is October 1st when this comes out, is the beginning of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, or it's NCSAM or CSAM, for those of you who need an acronym. So with your CSAM, please go and do your part. Be cyber smart is the theme. And go listen to the episodes that we've covered on it. And we're going to have some special stuff rolling out all month, that we've got interviews. And next week we're going to do something we've never done before. So we'll see how that goes. And so there's some cool things happening. So stay tuned, but go ahead and don't forget to utilize this for a security awareness program with your team.
Yeah, and there's tons of free resources out there. So there's presentations, there's white papers, there's posters. I mean, there's tons of stuff.
And there's ongoing events and and webinars, and so take advantage of. Free is good when it's this kind of free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've already stolen one of the presentations. So I like this one. It looks good. So anyway, check that stuff out. All right. Now, there's a document that came out, and came out from CISA. So from those of you who may not know who that is, a cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency
of the Department of Homeland Security.
Yes.
There you go.
All those other things. But, when it first came out, I was looking at it and I was like, what? Risk considerations for managed service provider customers.
Yep.
So, when I first saw it, I kind of left off the end of it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Risk considerations for MSPs. No, for MSP customers. And I'm like, oh, they're talking to my customers. I need to know what they're saying to them.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Which is the route we will take in this discussion. You are either a customer of an MSP, or you are an MSP, or you're considering being a customer of an MSP. Or maybe you're considering being an MSP.
Because everybody thinks that's easy until they do it. But this information and all the other things with the ransomware attacks and all these things is why we have been working to develop new programs and new ways to help the industry the best we can with what we've got to work with.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, we're not having a healthcare IT discussion here.
No,
this is all businesses. So, pay attention. It's not a healthcare or a HIPAA discussion here.
Although our big announcement is primarily that. So you going to get to it now, or you want to wait?
Let's wait. We'll set the stage.
Okay.
But yes, stay tuned. We do have a big announcement near the end.
Yeah, a couple big announcements. There's actually two, but they go together.
Oh, cool.
All right. Okay. So risk considerations for managed service provider customers. Go.
All right. So keep in mind here that this is why you can't have the I got a guy IT. This is also to say that if you're dealing with an IT vendor or an MSP and they're saying things like, all you got to do is, I had that one earlier this week on a prospect. They were like, this other guy was like, all you got to do for HIPAA is this. I'm like, no. So this was put together to aid organizations, this is what it says in the document, in making informed IT service decisions. The National Risk Management Center at the Department of Homeland Security, which we always say, all these things are risk management decisions, right?
Yep.
They developed a set of risk considerations for MSP customers. This framework, I like that, compiles information from CISA and IT and communication sector partners to provide organizations with a resource to make risk-informed decisions as they determine the best solution for their unique needs. Specifically, the framework provides organizations with considerations to incorporate into their IT management planning and best practices, as well as tools to reduce overall risk.
So
how many times do they use the word risk?
Yeah, it said this is a risk, and you need to realize that even though you're outsourcing to MSPs, you're still taking on a risk by doing it, but you are helping mitigate other risks by doing it. But you can't just count about the, we're mitigating others and not realize you're introducing new ones.
Yeah, there's a risk at mitigating the risk.
Always. So they got a lot of information. This thing is loaded with information. We will never be able to go through the whole thing in an episode, and it actually would be way better for everybody to, once you hear what we've got, go pull it out and review it. because this thing is designed, and before you say it's not for us, you need to realize everything has today something for small, medium, and enterprises. There's the small business, medium business, everything. And in fact, they say it is designed for government and private sector organizations of all sizes, and breaks it down into 3 sections of the audience of what you should consider. And it starts with senior executives and boards of directors, the strategic decision making section, and then operational decision making section, and then finally the tactical decision making section.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound cool though?
Yeah.
Tactical. I'm in the tactical decision making sector.
Well, I know now you're going to start doing it because that's network administrators, system administrators, and frontline cybersecurity staff. Tacticals.
So that's right. We are tactical. I am definitely going to be stealing that and making some changes. Yeah. We're going to be having a tactical decision-making meeting.
Yeah, just don't, those crazies that don't use cyber ninjas. Just that's been destroyed, even though it was cool. They've destroyed it. Moving on. The idea is this complements and builds upon guidance from CISA on how MSPs and small and mid-sized businesses contracting with MSPs can better mitigate against risk and harden their networks. Okay, so that's why we have it. That's why it's here. So what the points it makes over and over and over, there are a few of them that it just, have we said this way? Well, if we haven't said it that way, say it again, say it that way, because we need to say it like 40 times in different ways. And one of the biggest ones is outsourcing IT service does not absolve executives of risk management responsibilities.
Amen.
Boom. Right
Mic
there.
Drop.
And they say it over and over and over, talking about shared responsibility model, and you can't just, IT's got that. And how often do we hear that?
A lot.
All the time. And how often do we hear the MSPs say, don't worry, I got this?
Even more so. Yeah, I told a prospect this week, it's the same one I was talking about earlier, but when we were talking about the difference between what I'm telling them and what this other person's telling them, I said, at the end of the day, if the IT company screws up, whether it's mine or the other one, you're responsible, not us.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Yeah. So do you want to be responsible for what they do and say or what I do and say?
Yeah. We can give you some numbers to call to find out which one's right, and people have to make, it is your business decision. And a lot of people choose to go the riskier route because they don't want the hassle.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes it becomes the ostrich effect. So, stick your head in the sand, or the one that drives me more crazy than any of them is, well, nobody else is doing this. Or, nobody else has pushed back against this. Why are you doing? We have hundreds of other healthcare customers, so we must know what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times we've heard that from healthcare clients? Like, this MSP has, dozens and dozens of healthcare clients. They obviously know what they're doing. Not always the case.
Yeah.
Or as I had one big major international vendor tell me one time, you're the only person out of thousands of MSPs that's ever pushed back on our BAA. Just sign it. No, I'm not. It's wrong.
I read it. I'm probably one of the thousands that actually read it.
So keep those things in mind. Anyway.
Yes.
Moving on. Who's responsible for security and operations when outsourcing IT services to an MSP?
So, these are your considerations and best practices for senior executives and directors. So it's important to note here that this has a section designed for business owners, C-suite, boards of directors to read and understand it. Let's just make this clear, that they should see this and note that there is a section for them. I say this because I've had a CFO tell me, well, Donna, you guys said if we outsourced to an MSP, we didn't have to worry about this anymore. If you've listened to this podcast more than 30 seconds, you got to feel pretty certain that I never did say exactly that. No way. No. You need one because you're not in control and you don't have the staff. You need to mitigate risk, and that's how you should do it. But that does not mean you walk away. No. So, who is responsible? That, David, is something that I know you and I've talked about, the shared responsibility thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for you when you're trying to do shared responsibility to get people to understand it and do it.
Yeah, I mean, MSPs are often bumping heads with their clients on security because there's that balance of convenience and security. And as an MSP, I'm going to draw the line probably a little differently than my client. I'm going to want to push it to the very edge of what they would allow me to do. And they're, on their side, they're kind of doing the same thing. Like, how far can we push back against IT? And so there's this delicate dance going back and forth. But, I tell people all the time, at the end of the day, it's your business decision. You have to answer for why you're doing this. I don't have to answer for why you're doing it. You do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And when something goes wrong, you can't say, well, that's your fault, because as this section points out, organizations share in the responsibility for faults or failures that impact business operations and affect customers. And then it points out, in order to minimize such direct disruptions when outsourcing IT services, organizations can define roles and responsibilities. How about let's do that in our agreements that articulate the vendor's responsibility, the customer's responsibility, and the shared responsibility. And if you do that, you include things like who's going to apply patches, who maintains the hardware, who trains your employees. If you don't figure that out, guess what happens?
The client thinks you're doing everything.
And you think they're doing their part. And the final statement right here that I want to make sure, because as I mentioned, did I mention that they say it many, many ways and many times? Here's another way they say it. Ceding more responsibility to an MSP may increase cost efficiency, but could also increase risk exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get to just walk away. You have to consider the risk.
True.
Yes. And you don't want to lose visibility of what's happening. You do not abdicate all responsibility for IT by hire and MSPs. That means you have to be prepared to have more transparency. And we're going to really get into that in a minute. That'll be eye-opening to some.
Yeah.
Any more you want to add on that, Mr. Sims?
No. It moves on into identifying critical assets that need to be protected, which starts sounding almost like a risk assessment kind of thing, right?
It does. It makes that point later. So for all of you, then the next section that we're highlighting, and again, there's plenty for you to read. The next section that we're highlighting here says, and this is in the section for senior executives, i.e. business owners and boards, strategic priorities for small and medium-sized businesses. It's an entire section pointing out that SMBs, and this middle little piece right here, you still have, while you don't have the financial resources or technical expertise, which is what everybody says, we can't afford that, we don't have that, you're still responsible for risk management decisions when you decide what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, you're responsible. And SMB should catalog which assets are the most critical to your organization so that you can prioritize and exclude certain things from your vendor agreement and develop contingency plans and incident response and all those kind of things. So it says you should weigh risk management decisions by determining the following factors in potential vendor agreements. And how many times do you think you sign stuff and your small business is never asked these 3 questions?
Frequently. Usually I'm the one saying, these are questions you should be asking me.
Okay. Which tasks and responsibilities will the MSP take on? Yep. One of the big things there is things like disaster recovery. How much of disaster, what incident response? Are you responsible for all incident response? Because I know that you're keenly aware right now that small businesses often don't have an incident response plan.
Mm-hmm.
Which will the SMB continue to execute, meaning the other tasks and responsibilities, and which tasks and responsibilities are shared?
And this is all about simply setting expectations.
Yes, indeed, my friend. So this is in the next piece is the operational decision making. So how is this actually going to happen? It makes a point here. Again, for smaller organizations or those without staff dedicated specifically to these type functions, an enterprise risk management plan should account for each of these requirements as part of an integrated approach to risk management at whatever scale is appropriate. It doesn't say don't have one.
No. And you can't have a risk management plan unless you've had a risk assessment.
Yeah. So it makes it clear that, there are all these functions that are in big companies. You have all those names, the CIOs and the CISOs and the SOSOs and the ho-ho-hos. But
the chief awesomeness officer.
But the bottom line is all of those things, risk management, all of those, if you're a small company, you're still having to do those things. You just integrate it in other areas so that you're still worried about it. And so then it gives you what you should, and this, I think, is absolutely key to this whole guide for both understanding it as the customer, but I think actually more importantly, MSPs understanding it. You can, offer your thoughts on that. Organizations can also require self-attestation from MSPs to validate the use of industry standards and best practices maintained by continuous monitoring processes and tools, meaning the MSPs are monitoring themselves. One. But then it goes, what should an MSP provide to an organization in advance of contract award? And it's clearly defining all of these things, but the following elements from any potential MSP prior to signing is what they recommend. And there's a long list.
Yep.
Hit the highlights that got your attention, David.
So they all did. But anyway, well, first of all, we talked about having a clear definition of the services and security services. So different, right? We not just what are we supporting, but what are we providing as far as security services? That should be standard, but there should be a clear delineation of those two things.
So you're saying IT is not security and security is not IT?
Correct. I mean,
maybe we should do an episode on that.
We don't even sell it that way. I mean, I don't know how other MSPs do it, but we don't. IT services and IT security are completely different. And clients have to make a decision on those differently. It's not a one or the other. You're asking for support or services, and then you're asking for security, and both of them are different. Their line items on our invoices are different. So we completely separate them from the beginning.
But if you don't see it separated, should you ask?
Oh, absolutely, you should ask.
Okay.
Absolutely, you should ask. No. So here's a good one. Detailed guidelines for incident management, including the MSP's incident response responsibilities, warranty information, compensation for service outages. What? And plan to provide continuous support during a service outage. All righty. So again, what is the MSP going to do when an incident happens? Now, what it doesn't necessarily say, and Donna, maybe you know, but are they talking about an incident where it happens to the MSP or an incident where it happens to the client?
I think that the biggest thing is both, but a lot of this in here is about service outages. So it could be whatever service you're supplying. If it's not available, you need to know what's going to happen. So
that's the way I read it. Like, this is an incident that happens to the MSP, not to the MSP client.
Right.
Because as we both know, you have to have some level of incident response planning for your client.
Yeah. Yes.
So they should have an incident response plan. What are they going to do if they have service outages? And then if they do have service outages, is there compensation for that? Which, that's a tough discussion, because I mean, if your email goes down and I'm reselling you Microsoft 365, am I going to give you a break on your invoice because it went down for a few hours?
Microsoft ain't giving you one.
Yeah. I mean, the answer to that for me is no. But if there's something else that, that is within our control and you're down and it's a considerable period of time, weeks, then yeah, we'll have a conversation about it. But otherwise, no. But you need to know that. It's not a bad thing to ask. All right. So another one, remediation acceptance criteria that define the steps the MSP will take to mitigate known risks. So that's a pretty good one to get into.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? First of all, how are you even keeping up with what the known risks are?
Well, that gets into the things that we talked about being part of information sharing and all of that kind of stuff, which is a whole nother topic. Yeah.
I mean, it gets into a deeper dive into risk management and vulnerability management and things like that. And it's, a lot of MSPs are just kind of getting into that vulnerability management and things like that. So definitely a good conversation to have. And here's the interesting one. A software bill of materials or similar verification of the security of any software the MSP will use to provide its services. So you need to have proof that all these things you're putting on the customer systems, security software, RMM tools, remote access tools, you need to have verification of the security of that software.
Yes. And this is going to become a bigger, this is coming down the pike, I can tell you. This software bill of materials, a lot of people are pushing for it so that if you see that there is a major problem with a certain application, you don't even know that that's on your systems. So many people had no idea they used SolarWinds, and that they may have had the things that are in some of the applications that they use. These, hey, we buy this component from so and so, and it's incorporated. We don't tell you about it. Yeah. So that's going to become bigger.
Here's the interesting thing about that is a lot of MSPs, and we don't do it, and actually we've never done it, but a lot of MSPs want white labeled capabilities.
Yes.
And we've never went down that path. I've always said, I want the client to know exactly what's on their system. I don't want to hide behind, and it's not hiding behind. It's basically saying I want to be able to take this service, but brand it as if I'm the one that's creating it and delivering it and all that. I've always taken the standpoint of, if I want the vendor to be upfront, I'm just providing this thing from this vendor and I'm managing it and supporting it and all that. Because if it goes down, you don't want your name tied to it at that point.
No. No.
So
but it is important.
So I'm not a big proponent of white labeling, honestly. So I don't care if it has it or not. The other thing too is some MSPs are going to be like, oh, I don't want to tell you all the software we put on there because it's our secret sauce and, our security stack. We don't want to tell people, which I think is kind of absurd because, there's only so many variations of a security stack in our industry. So chances are other people
you
are
get in the corner
this.
and go, it's my precious all the time.
I know. There's some of us that have things that, others don't have, but for the most part, we're all using the same stuff to a degree.
Yeah.
Now there are different levels. Like there's the entry level stuff, and then there's a little bit better and a little bit better, but there's no secrets. Like people, these vendors are out there trying to get every MSP to do business with them. There's no secret that there's some piece of software that's a silver bullet. It's not.
And the more that you think that, if you're thinking that, then that only means you're in more trouble than you thought.
Yeah. So, it shouldn't be a big deal what you use. But anyway, statement from the MSP on how data from different clients is going to be segmented or separated on the MSP's network, which this is like one of those things where I'm shaking my head and like, there is going to be no data from the client on my network, period.
Right. Yeah, you just not
but I have vendors that I resell their services that do have client data, and I need to understand how they're dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
So, backup vendors and such.
Which then takes you to the documentation of vetting of employees, including subcontractors and independent consultants, to minimize risk of intellectual property theft, manipulations, and operational disruptions.
Mm-hmm.
So
this next one here, direct access to security logging information, network intrusion detection, and anomaly analysis data telemetry from all systems managed by the MSP. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well,
I don't disagree with it at all. I just think, first of all, some systems don't allow for that. Like some of the systems I have don't allow me to give customers access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other things out there that grab all of this. Like, for example, I could put a SIM in place and say, here's your SIM. We're dumping all these logs into, but that ain't cheap, baby.
Yeah. And so there's some of these that, as it mentions repeatedly, that you make decisions as a small business. Does it really matter to you? How much will it mitigate your risk? And if I don't have somebody, and that was one thing that we skipped, is it said up there previously in the document, if you don't have the skills, and believe me, many people think they have the skills, but they don't, to do this assessment, to bring in somebody to help them do that assessment. So I'm just saying. So I don't see that. And there's a couple of these. The ability for the customer to examine the systems that directly and indirectly support the service and all that. I don't see, I could see big enterprises doing it, but I don't see the smaller ones. But when we get to the last four ones, to me, all of these are important. Now, I always ask for this transition plan to support a smooth integration of the IT services. For me, we have a set risk analysis that we do if you're transitioning IT services for our clients. We're going to go do this, but that's generally IT companies. So you need to, I would expect to see that. And as an IT provider, David, don't you come in with it. And this goes for the IT providers who are being replaced. Stop the crap.
Stop being a jerk.
Yep, you've lost the business. It's not changing anything. You know?
It's funny because we've had a few times when we've been replaced, and sometimes, like for example, we had it happen during 2020 because some companies were downsizing to the point where they just weren't a good fit for us anymore, and so we were transitioning not to another MSP, but to somebody on site. Like we're just going to have a part, not even a part-time. It's like a part-time person. They're going to come in a few hours a week and try to do all this stuff that we were doing. But anyway, there's a transition of services, and we were technically losing the client.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's that or whether it's another MSP, my thing is, let's sit down and go over it and make sure everybody's on the same page and that we're giving you everything you need. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be holding anybody hostage. I'm not going to be a jerk to the incoming MSP. It's not their fault that I'm losing the business at all. In fact,
you could perceive it that way, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, even if they came in and stole the customer out from under me, it's not their fault. They're just doing what they're doing. It's my fault for not supplying to the needs of the client. They obviously thought that going with another MSP was a better option for whatever reason. Maybe it's pricing, maybe it's service, maybe it's because so-and-so's best friend and or whatever. I mean, in the past, we've lost clients for that because the owner's best friend decided to open an IT company.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
You can't do anything about that.
No, what are you going to do? So, transition should be smooth.
I remember back in the day when I was the VP of a software company, and I mean, I've always functioned this way. And I would have people come to me and say, well, such and such client is asking for this, and it's odd. This just doesn't make sense what they're asking us to do. And I look at it, and they're trying to not tell you, that whole thing about tell me you're leaving, but don't tell me you're leaving kind of thing. Because they were trying to get their data without telling us. And I just call them up and say, look, if you're leaving, just ask me for your data. Let's don't play games. And the number of times people are shocked, I'm going to do what's right for the client. That's it.
And then it goes on to say the organization should have input on the maintenance schedule to avoid and minimize disruptions. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of standard, I think. We're always asking clients, is there a better time for patching, or especially some of the backups, depending on what they are. Because otherwise, they suck up all the bandwidth.
Yeah, but I've had people come in and, well, we only work, we don't work on the weekends, so we have to have you down on Friday to install things. I mean, we've seen that occur, and I'm like, and you were okay with this? One of the reasons I got out of IT is, everybody expected you, when you do this work, they expect you to be available when they're working. And then anything that would impact their work, they expect you to do that after hours or on the weekend. So then you're supposed to work, 7 days a week, the 24/7, 365. And that's just, what you're going to deal with, and if you choose not to. So I do know that happens.
Just do like we do, and we don't provide after-hour support by standards, but if you want it, we'll do it. But there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
So it's just because we want people to really consider whether it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, because it gets abused
sometimes. Yeah, otherwise people are like, do everything after hours. Like, no. All right, so the next one here, now this one right here, dude, documentation of the MSP's financial health, performance record for other clients, and disclosure of any previous legal issues.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow. I mean, I don't have a problem with any of these, but wow.
Yeah. So here's my thing though, we talk about, I got a guy IT. Okay. If I get that documentation from I got a guy IT, what part of me doing that documentation would have me able to then say, look, I looked at him and I thought it was worth the risk, because, there's a lot of layers there. What if that person is in the hospital for 4 weeks? What if that person's in an accident and you got the one person? You've got to account for that in your risk management plan. Yeah. But yes, all you IT people out there that are like, you need to realize they're going to start asking for this kind of stuff. That was the list, and there's more in there. We just hit the high points. or what we thought.
I can see a lot of MSPs going, I'm not telling you about my financial health.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's proprietary information. But yeah, but those are good. I mean, you want to know, are they stable? You know, if they're not, especially in healthcare, if your MSP is not doing well financially, but you're giving them access to valuable data, just saying.
Reference our Hipaa Say What section segment. There you go. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So it does make
jump on down to.
It does have a section here right away on operational priorities for small and medium-sized businesses, and points out yet again that they may have multiple roles and associated responsibilities, very much like the C-suite, but they don't formally exist. And you know, you don't get a title. It's just one of the 15 jobs that's on your list, right? Mm-hmm. When you're in a small company, you pick a title. That's the official one, but I got all these others. And what they're making a point of saying is, yes, as a small company, you don't have all of those, but you need to make sure that everyone's involved in understanding what your MSP does. You don't make that decision over here and then you force it on other people who had no say, no input, and you don't even know. The MSP walks in the door, and I know this has happened to you. You walk in the door, and then you've got all these people that are like, well, you have no idea that nobody told you these things because, you know, you negotiated in good faith, thinking you were learning everything you're supposed to learn, but they didn't include everybody in the decision that actually does the work and knows where the bodies are buried.
That's a good way to put
it. You need to make sure that is actually happening. Is, have I talked to all the right people? All right, tactical, David.
All right, so listen up. I mean, you know, another way to say what we've already said. Policies and controls on the network access, controls and logs remain the organization's responsibility while outsourcing IT services to an MSP. I mean, I think we've said this before, right?
Yep. And I love the point they add to it here. Organizations, you do it.
Organizations should identify personnel responsible for monitoring and managing the day-to-day activity of MSPs and must set careful policies on the access given to any third-party vendor.
Any. Just saying. Yeah. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
So who's managing the managing?
Okay. All right. Then it gets into the considerations and best practices for tactical folks that we talked about later. Or earlier rather, and what network and system level access are appropriate for third-party service providers. It's suggesting this, and I know you were like, as soon as I read this, I was like, can't wait to hear what he says about that. Go ahead now.
MSPs, listen to this now, because somebody's going to ask you about it. The principle of least privilege to any MSP or affiliated subcontractor and assign only the minimum necessary rights for the shortest necessary duration.
Yeah, he said that. You can go read it for yourself.
Yeah. Now, MSP's listening going, what? Wait a minute. We have like admin access all the time. So you're saying that we shouldn't have admin access, or if we do, it should be temporarily and only for necessary duration.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it's saying.
Yes. And the whole thing about your client doesn't know their own admin password.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, nothing drives me more crazy than that.
And that's, you know, it's a thing. Like MSPs come in and are like, we're setting up an admin account and you don't have access to the admin account. We're going to lock it down. But they're using it all day, every day, and the client has no access to it, don't even know it exists, or they don't have the password to it. This is saying that the client should be giving you access on an as-needed basis.
And turning it off.
Which, I don't know, man. I don't disagree with the least privilege principle. What scares me is my clients probably aren't trustworthy enough to be turning admin access on and off.
Yeah, but you got to find a way, because the point here is a good one.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, this lends itself to some vendor to fix this. And I think there's already things that can do this. There are applications like Threat Locker and Auto Elevate that allows for temporary elevation of privileges. And so I think that that's going to be the answer to something like this, where I can say my staff can have temporary elevation of access to do a thing, and they don't have to have an administrative access. So I think it'll work for that. I don't see why it wouldn't, but I'm open to any other MSP's suggestions on that. But it's definitely something to consider. I mean, we're already talking about, should we eliminate our staff's ability to have admin access? We've started talking about that before this document came out. Don't have constant admin access. You should have the ability to raise your access on an as needed basis only.
You know, we just talked about how fat finger it, and accidentally hit enter. We're all capable of mistakes, and this is one of the big reasons why you shouldn't operate all the time with admin access. When I connect, I go in to do the admin thing, and that's it with that logon. And then I have a different one that I'm using for regular work. But yeah, so there's a whole section here in this bullet list. It starts with that and then goes through things like doing a risk assessment to identify and prioritize allocations of resources in cyber investment. Hello. Multi-factor authentication, review, verify all connections between customer systems, service provider systems, and other client enclaves. That one's a little tricky. Use a dedicated VPN, a lot of that stuff, folks are going to do. But then there were two specific ones in this last little bit that I highlighted. And one has to do with what we just talked about, which is ensure MSP accounts are not assigned to administrator groups, and restrict those accounts to only systems they manage, grant access and admin permissions based on need to know and least privilege. It's reiterating it. So they say a lot of things, a lot of ways, trying to get specific points across. It's pretty clear. And then,
but I can see MSP just getting all nutted up over that, though.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to hire you to manage our IT, but we're not going to give you admin access to do it.
Yeah.
Except on an as needed basis.
Right. This is why we're saying.
The other downside to that, though, you have to find a solution for it, because clients are like, I need you to fix it, and I need you to fix it now. And my response can't be, well, I can't fix it until you schedule with so-and-so to turn it on to give me access to it. And we can't do it right now. And we can't do it later. And blah, I mean, it just becomes a nightmare of response times and resolution times.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have to do is find a way to get a happy medium. We have to find tools, solutions, agreements, something, so that you're not unfettered admin access to everybody that works for the IT company all the time. Because, come on, I mean, that's not good either. We know that. I mean, that makes complete sense to say that that's really not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, that's like even the remote access. Should you have the ability to have unattended remote access? I don't know that that's even in here, but that's something to consider. Should somebody on the other end be letting the MSP in when they need remote access?
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, I want you to do that while I'm not working.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to lunch. Take care of it. By the way, it's not logged in. But yeah. Okay. The other one, notification of confirmed or suspected security events and incidents occurring on the provider's infrastructure and administrative networks. Now, you know how I feel about this, and I know how you feel about it. Because we see this often in business associate agreements, where it's like, I want you to tell me everything about every suspected security event that's happening on my network. What you don't know is that this is happening thousands of times a day. So unless you go ahead,
it gets to defining what is a suspected security event. You just have to say, you stipulate these are not it. A ping, a scan on my, those are happening. You never know how many. You could get 50 in a minute. You know, it's crazy. Or, you know, none for an hour. You never know. But those are just probing, and that happens all the time. And anybody that does have, if you've never had somebody dump your firewall logs so that you can see what's happening, like just on a Saturday, if you think it's because it's work, pull it on a Saturday. That's going on constantly. But it's the ones that worry me, and the language that I keep trying to get into BAAs now is, if you do in healthcare, at least, if you do the 4-factor assessment, or you even go down that path to decide whether it's a breach that requires notification, I want to know about it. I want to know that you decided it didn't, because that you suspected there was a security event. You confirmed there was one enough to go down that path. And there's so many that the BAA just says, only tell me if you decide there is one. We both know what that means. And so that's that line. Now, it's easy to do in healthcare. It's not as easy to do otherwise. But of that suspected security event, oh, yeah, you got to stipulate. Don't start throwing all that crap at me and being a jerk. But on the flip side of that, don't go making your own decisions about my data and have a little wacky kind of gray area decision process.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And just to wrap up the document some, they do talk about how organizations should incorporate the vendors within the incident response and business continuity planning. What? Incorporate the vendors in planning?
Wow. We've never said that before.
Only all the time. So, and I like the last little part here is talking about tactical priorities for small and medium-sized businesses. And it reiterates again, if you outsource IT requirements to MSPs to achieve efficiency and cost savings, it does not completely allow you to delegate the responsibility of things. Okay, so in other words, you're still liable. All right.
Yeah, it says cannot completely delegate responsibility to vendors. There you go.
Yep. And so also outsourcing IT services to an MSP, you should maintain full control of access to your network and your systems, and maintain awareness of the vendor's access by setting clear policies agreed upon by the vendor. You should also maintain logs of all MSP activity and have off-site backups of all critical data separate from the MSP's backups.
Wow.
Bam.
And they should be included in a vendor agreement and validated periodically.
Yeah. In other words, prove it.
And we brought it back to where it always goes. Can you prove it?
Yep. So lots of stuff here in this. And so this brings us to our big announcement.
We should have had a drum roll on your little board.
Should have had a drum roll. So, so with all this, it is a clear indication that there is a lot to do in the MSP space. There's a lot to do in the business space dealing with MSPs. And because of that, Don and I have been working tirelessly for like a year, putting together a program and revamping HIPAA for MSPs. So maybe we can call it 2.0. I don't know. But we're revamping all that, and we're meshing them together. And it's like peanut butter and chocolate. And
two great tastes. It tastes great.
Yeah. And I don't even know how deep we want to go down this rabbit hole, but we've got some amazing things we're bringing into this. So You want to talk about it a little bit?
Well, we're simultaneously rolling out things. So we're rolling out our new HIPAA for MSPs 2.0, and it is a full package that is going to help with recognized security practices. It's going to help with the things on this list. We're incorporating those things and building the content and the capability for MSPs to fully utilize these in a way that, this is all new stuff. So no one's doing it. We're having to figure it out as we go. But through the work that we have on the 405D committee, the work that we do with our own clients and, the organizations that we work with, we've got a ton of information and we're trying to find ways to best package it. And that's what we're up to. And we're always going to tweak and everything. But one of the key elements that we're including that's part of HIPAA for MSPs that's never been part of it, well, there's several that have never been part of it before, is we're also announcing the new Carding Club membership program. So we call it the All-Star membership level is included with the HIPAA for MSPs subscription. And the Carding Club All-Stars, what that is a package that includes training and reference material, a wiki for Q&A, a forum to discuss the different topics and participate with your clients who can also be HIPAA for MSP. Your HIPAA for MSPs that includes All-Stars, your clients could be part of All-Stars. Now, it's not a sales thing. No sales allowed. This is not what it's about. This is about getting proper information to the people that need it. So the Carding Club All-Stars is designed that if you are responsible for privacy and security in any way, shape, or form, if you need information, it should be under the Carding Club All-Star community site. Either there's training you need, reference to documents, articles, advice, it's going to be in that community. And if it's not there, we'll go get it and put it in there so that it is all in one place so that you're not looking for, well, where's the 405D stuff? Where's the NIST stuff? Where's the HHS stuff? How do I know what this term means? How is this interpreted? What happens when this happens? All of that, you go there to get those answers. So that if there's a question, we have the stored wiki with the Q&As in there and all kinds of access to our audio and video content, which we've never had before. So that if you want to find an episode or a webinar or part of the courses that come with the All-Star program, you do a search and it will find the audio and video content and take you directly to that spot in the episodes. So there are so many other things, but it'll all be out there and available on our websites, and there'll be links tied to from announcements on the Help Me with HIPAA website. So look for the information. It is all starting, and we are rolling it out to celebrate National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Do your part.
Yeah.
Be cyber smart.
Yeah, be cyber smart. So in addition to all that she's talked about, on the HIPAA for MSP side, think about this. This is the only resource out there that takes you and your clients and puts them in the same area. So they can be working on their compliance, you're working on your stuff, and then there's a section where everybody can kind of get together.
Yeah.
and you won't have access as a MSP, you won't have access to certain things that's only for the non-MSPs. And it'll be the same way. A non-MSP won't have access to things that are specific for MSPs, but there are also crossover sections where both will have access to it. And that's never happened before anywhere else. In addition to that, we're going to be giving you, as an MSP, you also are going to be getting a license to be able to use Comply Assistant software. So
for your compliance.
Yeah, for your own compliance, not for your clients and all that, but for your own internal compliance as an MSP. This is a major software package that's available to hospital systems and all that. And it's not one of those things where Donna was like, we should build our own, like some of these other companies do. Dude, we went out and found the best of the best, and we're bringing it in. And then lastly, we have partnered with a healthcare accreditation organization, and we've built a MSP specific HIPAA program that they have vetted, and they're creating a test around, and they are going to be giving the HIPAA for MSP folks a test on that course material. And if you pass, they will give you an accreditation to say you are a certified HIPAA managed service provider. The CHMSP seal would be yours.
And it's third party. It ain't us.
Third party. We are the only people out there, okay? The only people that have a third party healthcare accreditation organization that's doing this. Not we created it and we're vetting it and we're giving you this seal to put on your site and all that. No, a third party. Mm-hmm. So I'm super excited about that. So there's so many things here that nobody else is doing. And it is proof that we are not creating something for the minimum service providers out there. Okay. If that's you, go somewhere else. It's not for you. This is for the people that want to knock it out of the park and blow you out of the water and do things right.
Yes. And we want to be able to continue rolling out more and more features. So we keep waiting until it's perfect, and everybody knows that perfect is the enemy of done. And so we are absolutely not perfect, but we're never going to have everything we want. But we've got to start getting access to people because these things are happening and people need help. And as a MSP, they turn to you for help. So you've got to be the one for these small businesses to understand what's going on with this, why people are worried about managed service providers and hiring them, what you should look for, as well as knowing what to teach them about the value of recognized security practices and all of the things that are freely available that you can incorporate into your program so that you have things without having to raise your prices that are super valuable to your clients. So we're going to tie all that together in one place, and fingers crossed, we're going to knock it out of the park.
Oh yeah.
Every time.
So if you're an MSP and you want to know more, go to HIPAA4MSPs.com. Even if you misspell it, you'll get there. How about that? HIPAA4MSPs.com for that. And if you want to know more about the Cardin side, where should they go, Donna?
CardinHQ.com. And if you go to this episode's show notes, we'll have all kinds of information on the show notes. Probably the easiest place to go because it'll link you to everything you need.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's it for today, folks. Thanks again. Remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media and rate us on our podcasting app or wherever you're listening. Give us a rating.
Yeah.
So remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with Hipaa podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.